Hello and welcome to What the Hey, where I'm your regular host of What the Hey, and today on What the Hey, I'm once again answering yet another question. When I go to my notebook of knowledge, I see the question of, what the hey is midnight mass? Now, I personally am the one who asked this question, so hello to me, and I am excited to share this topic with all of you. Now, in terms of a very basic description, Midnight Mass is a television series that delves into the world of religious trauma and I would say miscommunication. Now, the creator of the show is Mike Flanagan, and the production company for Midnight Mass would be Intrepid Pictures, so those are kind of the, people, for the most part, who kind of put their effort into the show. Currently, the only way to access or view the actual television series of Midnight Mass is through Netflix. If you're borrowing someone's account, maybe you just need to cram it all into one day, which is possible. The initial release for Midnight Mass was on September 24th of 2021, so it's not that old. It's been a few months, but seriously, not that long. Which is great and also not great because there's some people who know about it, and I hope eventually that there are more people who get into it because I'm into it. Currently there's only one season with a total of 7 episodes, so it's really not that long. You could pretty much knock it out in a day if you wanted to. Each specific episode typically lasts around an hour, so if you do want to knock it out in a day, you're gonna have to just set some time aside. For this section of the video, I'm going to list the main characters of the show. There are a lot of side characters that are pretty important, but the ones I'm going to list, I feel, have the most to contribute to the show's plot. There's Father Paul Hill, Aaron Green, Riley Flynn, Bev Keane, Sheriff Hassan, Lisa Scarborough, and Dr. Sarah Gunning. Those are the characters that I feel are the most important. Most of these characters kind of influence each other's just general beliefs and actions throughout the show, and they show up the most, which is why I feel like they're the most important. In other words, they generally just add a lot to the plot and what you basically glean from the entire show. Even before I get into my general opinion, one of the coolest things I think about the show is the fact that each episode is named after a book of the Bible. Midnight Mass is a religious show, so if that's something you're not into completely, that's okay, because you'll see how religion is portrayed throughout the show in a very interesting way. But 5 out of the 7 episodes actually have books from the Bible, like the names, whereas there's 2 episodes called Gospel and Acts of the Apostles, but the rest are Genesis, Psalms, Proverbs, Lamentations, and Revelation, which the titles and the book names kind of correlate with what the episode is kind of covering. So for this section of the video, I'm going to do my best to give a general plot overview without spoiling too much. So basically, the whole show surrounds this island that is very desolate and cut off from society. The people on this island have a lot of stuff to do with fishing, boating, and then religion. Now the main religion on this island is kind of like Catholicism, Christianity. There's also a subplot with a different religion, which is kind of cool, and those kind of contrast, which is fun. But the people on this island are very attracted to the main church center on this island, and that becomes a whole big thing throughout the entire show as things progress in the group that goes to the church. And one of the reasons why that is because there's this character, Father Paul, who comes onto the island essentially saying that he used to know the old pastor and he's filling in for him while he is getting better. And there are really miraculous things that happen through this new, basically, preacher, leader of the church. And everyone's like, oh my goodness, this is so cool, we all gotta, attend this church. And it's definitely not sketchy. One of the earlier kind of major plots that kind of ends halfway through the show is this character named Riley who has gone through a traumatic experience, essentially ruining someone's life. And then he comes to this island and he has all this guilt from what he's done, and he gets involved with the church and Father Paul, and it all kind of becomes a mess. But the main thing to decide whether or not you want to check out the show is the fact that the church on the island essentially has what most people would consider to be a cult following. And while you watch the show, you understand why that's a big deal. I'm not going to describe it more than that because I feel like I've already given some stuff away. But if you're kind of into the whole like religious trauma, religious questioning, and just like culty stuff, this show's for you. Which the reviews around the show are pretty much positive. A lot of people like it, mainly because of the preacher dudes like acting in it, which is really good. Some people criticize it because the makeup's not that great, which if you watch it, you'll kind of understand. And then some of the acting from some of the people is okay. But personally, I think it's really good. Which goes into my general opinion because I'm personally someone who's grown up around religion, like with my family and just like general experience. So seeing the show was enlightening in kind of different ways. I personally am someone who likes to hear and see the viewpoints of people who are outside or who have like experienced religion, whether that's in a positive or negative light, because it's just kind of cool to see. The genre of this television series is definitely kind of like suspenseful, pretty much horror for the most part. If you're someone who does not like religious trauma or like gross kind of gory stuff, this show probably isn't for you, which is okay. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but there's also this character on the island who has a different religion, and they have a son who is in their religion initially, but is kind of being converted to like the Catholicism and the Christianity of the main church, which is very interesting to see. And they bring up just cultural mindsets, which is very also interesting in general. One of my favorite things about the show is the fact that if you're watching it and something does not sound or seem right, like you get an off feeling about it, that's on purpose. My sister, who also has watched the show, she saw it before me. She was saying, if you ever sense that something is off in the show, that is very much correct, and you're not wrong for thinking that it sounds weird. One of the things that I feel the show does extremely well is include biblical scripture, but manipulate it in a way that makes sense for the people using it. If you watch it, you'll understand it, but some of the religious leaders in the show will say scripture from the Bible or whatever they're quoting, and it's like what they're quoting is correct, but how they're quoting it and what they're referencing it to is not correct, and it's like clear manipulation, but it's so great. The end of the show concluded very well. All the questions pretty much got answered. And as I said earlier, I don't think there's going to be a season 2. I would hope there is because it's cool. But nothing's confirmed yet, so I wouldn't assume so. But that's essentially the answer to the question. So if you have any questions, let me know and I'll get to answering them as soon as I can. So thank you very much for watching. Bye.